sales. So I was told this is clearance weekend at the Dollar General. So if you are thinking, I'd love to buy some things for Operation Christmas Child, and I'm on a budget, it will stretch very far this weekend apparently. So pop over and grab a few things. Or not, whatever. But I'm just passing on the sale news. We did have the annual meeting. Was that last week? Sorry, it has been a very busy week, so my mental calendar, gone, just gone. I just know that I'm here today, and that's good. The church board, there was a new election that these members will serve for the next 2 years, and those members are listed in the bulletin, so if you're curious who the new board members are, they're listed there. Kids Camp is next week. Beth, do you know, does that mean like starting tomorrow, or is that like next week? Starting tomorrow. Okay, so kids, in my opinion, Kids Camp is this week that we're starting. We need to be in prayer for safety with travel, for a good week for the kids, that God can speak to them in ways that they understand, that they can cling to the things they learn, they can bring back that excitement, and they can help share it with other people too, and that they can grow. Because, yeah, camp's for fun, but it's also for being able to help them build their foundation for the rest of their lives. So we need to be praying for the kids' camp. Upward volunteers, still need volunteers. If you're interested, I know Pastor Brad is away, but you can always shoot him an email. You can also talk to Angie. She is doing all sorts of things while Pastor Brad's away to fill in. So thank you, Angie. We appreciate you. We appreciate Beth, who keeps everything running as well. Remember, men, you're still meeting on Saturdays at the Hub at 9 a.m. for breakfast and a time of fellowship. And I know that happens whether Pastor Brad's there or not, because you guys enjoy that time. So that's what's going on this week. Thanks for your attention.
Invite you all to stand with us as we sing, "Blessed Be the Name." Oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing, blessed be the name of the Lord, the glories of my God and King. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Jesus, the name that charms our fears. Blessed be the name of the Lord. His music in the sinner's ear. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. He breaks the power of canceled sin. Blessed be the name of the Lord. His blood can make the foulest clean. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. There shall be showers of blessing. This is the promise of love. There shall be seasons refreshing, sent from the Savior above. Showers of blessing we need. Mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers of blessing, precious reviving again, over the hills and the valleys, son of abundance of rain, showers of blessing, showers of blessing we need, mercy drops from us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers of blessing, send them upon us, O Lord. Grant to us now a refreshing, come and now honor thy word. Showers of blessing we need, mercy drops on us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers of blessing, oh that today they might fall. Now as to God we're confessing, now as on Jesus we call. Showers of blessing we need, mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers of blessing, if we but trust and obey. There shall be seasons refreshing, if we let God have his way. Showers of blessing we need, mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. All that thrills my soul. Didn't sound right, did it? Who can cheer the heart like Jesus? By his presence all divine, true and tender, pure and precious. Oh, how blessed to call him mine. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me, and the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see. Love of Christ so freely given, grace of God beyond degree, mercy higher than the heaven, deeper than the deepest sea. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me, and strength divine delight. He is all in all to me. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed I see.
Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where your streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering. Though there's pain in the offering, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Oh, blessed be your name. My heart will choose to say, oh, blessed be your name. Oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. I'll find a way to say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. For the rising of the sun to the setting of the same. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for bringing us all here together today to hear your word with our families. Thank you for giving us another beautiful day to do your good works in. I pray that you be with us. I pray that you comfort those who need comfort. Father, I know everyone here has prayer requests on their hearts, and I know you can hear every single one of our thoughts. So please just be with us. Help us through our hard times. Grant us serenity. Hear our prayers. And Father, today as we take up our tithes and offerings, I pray that you be with those as well. Let us, the church, be good stewards of the funds that you bless us with. And all God's children said, amen. All right. Well, I think they already went back to nursery, but nursery is open for any other little kids. I think Easton could probably go back there if he wanted to.
Now you'll notice we say brother and sister around here. You know why? It's because we're family and these folks are so dear. When one has a heartache, we all share the tears and rejoice in each victory in this family so dear. I'm so glad I'm a part of the family of God. I've been washed in the fountain, cleansed by his blood, joint heirs with Jesus as we travel the sun. For I'm part of the family of God. From the door of an orphanage to the house of the King, no longer an outcast, a new song I sing. From rags unto riches, from the weak to the strong. I'm not worthy to be here, but praise God I belong. Oh, sing the song.
I'm so glad I'm a part of the family.
I've been washed in the fountain, cleansed by his blood, joint heirs with Jesus as we travel the sun. For I'm part of the family of God. Yes, I'm part of the family of God.
Hello again. This morning we have Tim Knutson here with us. He comes to us from Minot. He is the development director at Dakota Hope Clinic, and he also works for eXp Realty. Welcome, Tim.
Clap now, might not later. You like that? Oh, I'm full of it. So good morning, yes. And I actually was raised primarily the majority of my life in Carpio. So So everybody always asks me, are you related to the Knutsons and Kenmare? I'm like, nope. I was born in northern Minnesota. You know, we could be related, but my dad was Air Force, but it's funny, his Air Force career in 23 years only brought him from Grand Forks Air Base to Minot Air Base. And I was born in Thief River. My whole family were all from the northern Minnesota area, so that was the extent of our Air Force career. I graduated from there in '89, and and now I live in Minot. I have a wife and 4 daughters. I got a 22-year-old daughter that's married and has 4 foster kids, and then I have a 19-year-old daughter that's going to be married here in August, and then I got 2 7-year-olds that we adopted, and and they're only 4 months apart. Their names are Callie and Amari, so we call them Calamari to make it easy for everybody. People look at me funny though when I'm calling them to come in for dinner, you know, Calamari. They're like, you named your daughter Calamari? So I've been with Dakota Hope Clinic in Minot since the beginning, which was about 14 years ago that we started the process of opening up Dakota Hope Clinic. We've been open for 10 years now, come this September. And Dakota Hope Clinic is a local pregnancy help center that services all of north central, northwestern North Dakota. That's a lot of norths. And so we are a pregnancy help center. So in that context, what that means, to make sure everybody kind of understands and knows what that means, is that we're to help. And so what that means is that once you are pregnant, we don't help you get pregnant. We're there afterwards. Okay? So making sure you understand that. But we do help with unexpected pregnancies. And at the basis of all that we do too is Christ too. So it is a Christian organization. That is our foundation. And so with that in mind, we are a pregnancy help center, and we help with pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, and all kinds of education and that sort for not just our clients, but also for the public. So we provide all kinds of education and all that pertains to life, really. So we have a pregnancy, or we have a class, or Earn While You Learn education opportunity that's for anybody. It doesn't matter if you're currently pregnant or you have kids, but if you'd like to take advantage of it, we encourage people to do this, that they can do their classes online, so they can go on their phones or on their computers, and there's a variety of classes from life skills to how to rear children. And when you take the classes, so if it's both the mom and the dad, they can earn their own separate points. And then when you earn points, they build up, and then you can spend them in our baby boutique, which is a tremendous, if you guys are in Minot, swing by where we're located at. We're kitty corner from what used to be Trinity Hospital, across from the emergency room. We're in this big white building that's called the main medical building. There's other businesses in there too, restaurant and different things. And you can swing in there and take a tour. And I'd like to show you the clinic, or somebody will show you the clinic. And then also the baby boutique. That's where they can spend their points that they've earned from taking these classes in the baby boutique. And it's full of all brand new baby clothes and baby toys and brand new diapers. Well, yeah, not used diapers. They're only good if they're new, right? Unless you get the kind that you clean out, like in the old days. So that's been a tremendous program for us. And so much so that when we have had clients that come in that might be abortion-minded, when they've had the opportunity to see our Earn While You Learn program and this education program, and then see the baby boutique, they've been really moved. And we've had more than one person that has chosen life for their child just based on our baby boutique. And so that is tremendous. And that is all donations. So we've had churches that will do like a baby shower, and then everything that's raised for the baby shower is donated to the clinic. Of course, the item that we go through the most is diapers, just like any family, right? But we have clothes, like I said, and we do up to 3-4T, that size too. So I mean, we have we want to be there for the duration, and just really help people get a footing and a foundation behind them. And I just want to encourage you too, that to know who we are and what we do. So hopefully I can help educate you about that a little bit this morning as I share with you about Dakota Hope. As far as the education that we do too, we have all kinds of different education that we've done in the past. We've done a sexual risk avoidance class, it's called, and it basically is to help educate people about, and this was just by the numbers, it wasn't a Christian-based organization or anything like this, but it was a 2-day course that was actually accredited for teachers and for nurses, and to learn about what happens if you choose to have premarital sex and just all the outcomes of that. And this was all numbers that is produced by the CDC and the government, and they keep track of that. And they've come to find that God's way is the best way. So if you wait till after you're married to have sex and have children, and if you do things in the right orders, you have a higher probability of success in this world in many different ways. So there's a lot of really good that came out of that class. We just had we have one coming up in October. It's called the Post-Abortive Ladies Panel. And what that is that it's a group of women that from around the state that will come together, and they just talk about their experience of when they've had an abortion and how they found forgiveness through Christ in that. And that's been a really tremendous education. And we also provide what's called Discover Peace. It's a program that's put on by a post-abortive woman that helps to invite women to come and join her, and then they go through this time of healing. And it's really important that you know that and understand that, because we find that the majority of our clients that come into Dakota Hope have, the highest percentage of them have heard by word of mouth. So when I'm educating and when I'm out talking in churches, a lot of times I always get that funny old guy that's like, ha, 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 I'm not going to get pregnant anytime. Thank you. Yeah, I knew that. And it's like, but that's not the point. The point is that you know who we are and what we do. So even though this might not specifically affect you, it is important that you do know who we are and what we do. So that way, when you do run into somebody that you know needs help, you can say, hey, I know of this place in Minot. I know of Dakota Hope Clinic. And you can say they're kitty corner from the old Trinity Hospital. They're in the main medical building. You can, educate yourself a little bit about Dakota Hope. So it's kind of like knowing CPR. Even if you know just a little bit, you can't remember exactly how many rhythms you give, how many often you blow into their mouth, things like that. As long as you know a little bit and you start applying what you do know of CPR during that time, you can help save a life, right? That's what's important about learning. In fact, we just had a CPR class yesterday that we did at Dakota Hope for anybody, so like for our clients, and so we really tried to educate, but then we really want to share Christ with them too, and make sure that, they come to know who the Lord is, and try to get them back onto that path too of knowing the Lord. And so I just really want to encourage you to know more and learn more about Dakota Hope. You can go to our website at dakotahope.org. Come to our banquet in the fall. We are just opened up a satellite clinic out here in Tioga back in October. And now we're in the process of getting one renovated up in Botno. And that's also going to be a satellite clinic, kind of managed by volunteers. And then if there is a pregnancy that say they want to have an appointment and they can't make it to Minot, our nurse, we have a traveling nurse that will actually bring our ultrasound machine, a traveling ultrasound machine, to the clinic and do an ultrasound, which is tremendous. We have an ultrasound, of course, a stationary one that stays at the clinic right now, but it has been huge for us and for our clients. 2 weeks ago, in fact, there was a perfect story of this, a young woman that came in, and timing, it just is everything. And so she came in and she was upset and just, she was pregnant, and she said, this isn't the time, I can't do this. When can I schedule an abortion? People assume that's what we do. And of course, we do not mislead or advertise that way, but people assume that's what we do. So she was really adamant. But the nurses said, well, let's do an intake and let's talk about this. And so they educate her on what's going to happen if you do. Here's what the statistics show. There's a high percentage that will have depression after they've had an abortion. Depression a lot of times will lead into an addiction. And then a lot of times too, it can lead into maybe a second or third abortion. So there's a high percentage there. And so we talk about that, but then we also talk about other options, other choices. And that's what, the pro-choice side of the world wants is choices, right? But they don't tell them about these choices. That have you considered marriage? Have you considered moving forward as a family? Depending upon the situation, we talk about all these, but then we also talk about adoption and the importance of adoption. And it's amazing. I didn't know this until I got really started with Dakota Hope, how down it's looked upon. Adoption is really looked down upon, especially by men. It's usually the very last option. So if they are abortive-minded, abortion first, parent second, adoption last. And in fact, so a lot of times when I talk to the men, they're like, well, I don't want to just give my baby to anybody. And I don't know what they're going to do to them. They could abuse them. And then I don't want that baby coming back to me in 30 years wondering why they didn't want me. That's usually what I hear. And TV does a really good job of making foster parents and adoptive parents look bad, right? Because usually, you hear about, in these movies, it's always depicted like why somebody's so bad is because, they were raised in a foster home where they were abused by 16 people, and and the adoptive parents were mean and horrible and didn't feed them, and and we hear all, and every once in a while we'll even hear those stories, right? I was adopted. I've adopted little girls. I foster. But that's, we only hear about those one really bad case scenarios, right? And it shines a light bad on everybody. And so everybody has this mindset. And then the way we say it, the wording, we had an adoption training class to help people learn how to talk about adoption. That's really all it was about. And the main thing I took away from that is the way we say, they gave their child up for adoption. Makes it sound so frivolous, like, here, you want a candy bar? Here, I'll give it to you. It's not that way. When we adopted our first daughter, it was so hard on her mom. And she was making bad choices and made bad choices after the next, and just, kept getting herself in situations. And we'd go to court, and she didn't want to. It wasn't something that she desired. She wasn't just giving it up. She placed her child in a loving home. She, after she met us, and then we tried to minister to her, and we encouraged her, and we brought her to church, and just tried to love on her. And I thanked her, and I'm still thanking her. And now we have two. Later on, we just adopted a little girl 2 years ago now. Or no, 6 months ago. We got her 2 years ago. So we're not just a pregnancy help center. So anything pertaining to that. So like I said too, and it used to be back in the day, it was called a pregnancy crisis center. Let me tell you this, the majority of the people that come into the clinic are not of that mindset. They're not like that woman I told you about that came in there and was like, I need to have an abortion. A lot of them come in are just needing help, or they want to have an ultrasound and see the baby, and they just are looking for help in that context, but they're happy. But now, I'm telling you about this young woman that came in, and she was committed to having an abortion because timing was bad. And the nurses talked to her, and they brought her in and did the intake, started talking to her, and then they said, well, let's maybe have an ultrasound, because ultrasound reveals and shows life. So they did an ultrasound, and just like that, click, click, she did a 180. All of a sudden, that's my baby. I'm going to have this baby. Can you print that off? I'd like to have a reveal party now. We went from life or death to life. Boom, boom. That ultrasound is huge, hugely important. So I'm hoping that this morning, as I talk to you a little bit and we go through a message here, that it can help you to have that same vision of where people are and where they can be. And you can be that catalyst for Dakota Hope. Okay? I encourage you too that when you go home, read through Genesis 1, 2, and 3. That's where I'm going to kind of talk to you about this morning. Is that in Genesis, that's where it all starts, right? Genesis 1:26, 27, it says that we're all created in the image of God. Don't be mistaken, though. That doesn't mean we're all children of God. It talks about that in the book of John. It says that you are a child of Satan until you, what? Come to place your faith in Christ. And then guess what? By the spirit of adoption, we're brought into the family. But we're all created in the image of God. Don't mislead people into thinking that they're just going to heaven because we're created in the image of God. But because you were created in the image of God, and God breathed life into Adam, and then it's just continued on there. Every breath we take, life. We're very susceptible to death. Someone forcibly takes your breath away for 2-3 minutes, you'll be dead. Breath of life. God created Adam, placed him in the garden, gave him some rules. He said, you can partake of all this trees and all this fruit. You can have of all of this, except for these two in the middle. You cannot partake of those, because in the day that you do, you will surely die. And then the first thing that was not good in the garden, the first thing that was not good, can you imagine this? Was for man to be alone. That was not good. Isn't that interesting? It wasn't like, you'd think it was to be something bad in this context of like sin or whatever. But he said this is not good for Adam to be alone. So what does he do? He creates for him a helpmate, woman. Right? And it says that they became husband and wife, which is controversial these days. Man and woman, that there's only two, and all that. But it's amazing how Satan comes against the word of God and the stuff that is pertaining to life. 2 men can't make a baby, 2 women can't make a baby, so life stops at that point. But then they come together, and they're husband and wife, and they're going through life, going through the garden, partaking of the fruit. And then what happens in Genesis chapter 3? Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said? Questioning right away, has God said? So it's interesting to think in this way. This is somebody that's having a relationship with God more than we've ever known, walking with him and just amongst the garden. And all of a sudden Satan says, has God said? It's interesting in this context, because why? If you go back and read in Genesis chapter 2, Eve was not there when God gave instruction to Adam. I find that interesting. And he told Adam, you can partake of all this, but in the day that you partake of this fruit, you will surely die. So now this is my presumption, is that Adam gave the directions to Eve. I'm just playing on that. Go with me. But think like this now. I've raised all these kids, right? And when you raise kids and you want to teach them up in the way they should go, you tell them what's right and wrong, what's good and evil. This could kill you. This could hurt you, right? Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't fall down. It's funny when I say that to my kids. Oh, don't wipe out. And like they're going to do it on purpose. So stupid. But like I tell my kids, like power outlets, like, hey, don't stick your finger in here, right? Don't poke anything in there, because when you do, it could kill you. Can you imagine in a little kid's head, 3 years old, looking at that like, that could kill me? And what is death? The kids don't even know what death is. And it's just like, what? And then their sinful nature's like, when you're not looking, what do? Touch it. And they're like, that dad, he's full of baloney. I didn't die. Right? So this is the way I can't imagine it, because, let's continue reading. He says, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? God did say you could eat of all of it except for the one in the middle. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. So she is quoting God too. She said, but he said, God said, don't eat of this, but also don't touch it. Satan catches on to that. He knows the word better than you and I do. And he catches on to that little touch part thrown in there is not true. So he knows that she doesn't know what she's talking about for sure, other than just don't touch it. God never said anything about touching it. Touching it wasn't going to do anything but create more temptation. And he says to her, and he's already making her doubt anyway, did God really say this? He's testing her. Well, God said that. And then the serpent says, you will not surely die. That's the first thing he says to her. It's interesting to think in that context, you will not surely die. When they were created perfect, and they had no sin in them, and sin is equivocal to death. So there was no death in them. They were never going to die, which you and I cannot even understand. They were going to live forever. So you imagine being told of something that, it's like when I was 20 years old, I didn't think I would ever die. That's why I was in the hospital all the time, right? You just don't feel like that's really going to happen. So he says, you will not surely die. But then he goes, for God knows in the day that you eat of it, your eyes will be opened. You won't die. You'll actually be opened up to something else. It's called being woke. We're being held back from something that God really wants me to have. For God knows in the day that your eyes will be open, and what? You'll be like God, knowing good from evil. Now, what's wrong with that, though? I want my kids to know good from evil. And then think about it. In Eve's defense, she didn't have ill intent. I really don't, some people preach differently, but I look at it this way. I mean, my daughter gave me a page that she colored, and it was a picture of a little puppy and a big dog, and it says, I want to be like Dad. And she goes, Daddy, I want to be like you, right? When I was a kid, people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, well, I want to smoke Winston cigarettes, drink Budweiser beer, and race cars. Because that's what my dad does, right? So we want to be like our dad. So it says, you will be like God, right? But then, knowing good from evil. Don't we teach our kids good from evil? Yeah. Don't touch that outlet. Don't do this. But do we back it up with everything? This is what God said? Do we show it in the Bible? God said, don't touch the electrical outlets? No, but we want them to know good from evil. But why is this such a thing that when the day that you partake of it, you will know good from evil? Because guess what? God is providing all good for them. All they knew was good. They didn't have to decide. They didn't have to. But guess what? God gave them free will to choose and to know the difference between good and evil. So she saw that the tree was good for food and is pleasant to the eyes, which is interesting because God already said that in Genesis chapter 2, that the fruit was good to the eyes and good to eat. So it looked good. Isn't it help when food looks good, smells good? When I look at lutefisk and smell it, I'm like, I don't prefer to eat my fish with a straw. And the tree was desirable. So the third part, so this is interesting. It was tempting in three ways. It was good to the eyes, it was good to the body, but then what? Desirable to make one wise. What? What's wrong with that? She wanted to be like God. But this was Satan tempting her. Remember in Ezekiel and all that, when it talks about Satan, his desire was what? To be higher than God. He wanted his throne to be up here. He wanted to beat God over all. That was his temptation. So this wasn't just good to look at and good to take in, but it was also good to put me up here and to make me like God. That was that decision. So she took of its fruit and she ate of it through that temptation. And then she gave some to her husband and he ate it. Why did he give in so quick? I think about that as a Christian. When I see other Christians sinning, and then all of a sudden I see a whole bunch of Christians sinning, pretty soon I become like, well, maybe it's not that big a deal. They're all doing it. Maybe Adam's like, well, I told her if she ate of that, she'd die. That's what I was told. If I told you guys right now, like, hey, don't come up here and touch this plant, because if you do, you'll die. What did I just tell you? When do you think you would die if you came up here and touched it, according to what I just told you? When you touched it, you'd think you would die. You would fall over dead. Touch it dead. Right? Adam sees her take, eat it, and she's living, and she's enjoying it. I'm missing out on something. So he partakes of it, and he eats it. Then what's it say? Then the eyes of both of them were opened. No, first part was their eyes were opened. So the thing is that what God was what Satan wanted to tempt them with was what you're being kept from something. He knows in the days that you eat of it, your eyes will be opened. That was part of the temptation, that they're being kept from something that God wants to keep you from getting all this great stuff. So they partake of it, and their eyes are opened, but it didn't turn out like they thought it was, because now they saw that they were naked. And why is that such a big deal? It's interesting. What's that have to do with anything? They saw they were naked. They didn't have to profess it, or nobody had to tell them. But it's interesting because in order to notice that you're naked, your focus has to be somewhere else. Their life was all about God. It was perfect. And now all of a sudden everything went here. My life isn't with God anymore. I was disobedient. Now I recognize that I'm in opposition to God. Thus, shame enters in, right? Shame. So what do? They run, and they grab some leaves, and they cover themselves, right? And they go and hide in shame. Then God shows up in the morning, calling out to them, where are you at? We're hiding because we did horrible things. And he says, and why? Well, we know that we're naked. They know that we're guilty. So God calls them out. Of course, they do the blame game. It's this woman he gave me. The devil made me do it. You know, all that, right? Goes down that road. And then, this was interesting to me. As they're sending them out, God says, in this day and age, when somebody really messes up, we want to be like, let's just let bygones be bygones. Let's forget about it and let's go back to the way we were. God couldn't do that. He said, you have to leave the garden. But before you go, we have a departing gift, right? Like Bob Barker or whatever. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 21, there's a line in there that gets kind of skipped a lot. Genesis 3:21, it says, for God provided them a tunic. That's it. Before they left, he provided a tunic for them. What's a tunic? It is a piece of, it's a loin covering. It's something to cover up your private parts. It's clothing. But a tunic is also made of animal skin. So I think of a tunic as like being made of leather, right? This belt is going to survive me. And when I die, my kids are going to find it, and they're going to be like, what do we do with Dad's old belt? Right? So now, this is something that lasts long. God provided for them a tunic, a covering, but in order to provide the covering, something had to die to provide it. Blood was shed to atone for them, to cover them. So guess what? They don't have to cover themselves anymore. You imagine making clothes out of leaves? You women would be all about that. You'd be getting a new wardrobe every day. And us guys would be like, yes, dear, I'll go get you more clothes today. No, now all of a sudden, gone. Now tunics will last their lifetime. He provided a covering as they're leaving. You can't stay here. He covered their shame, and they didn't even ask for it. Isn't that interesting? I don't really sense or hear or read anything in here where they apologize. They blamed gamed. I bring this all up to bring this attention that a large majority of clients that go into any pregnancy center in the nation claim to have Christian faith. 72% is the average in the nation. It's at least that, if not higher. I would say it's in the 80% something, and might not claim to have Christian faith. You know how that is. Not everybody that claims to be a Christian is, right? But I can tell you this, from my experience of running in, to knowing, even in abortion clinics, the highest percentage of people that are having abortions claim to have Christian faith. And I've heard abortion clinic people, leaders, say that the majority of their clients that come in are pro-life. But what instigates that is shame. I had a conversation with a woman that was trying to sell us ads for Dakota Hope. And I was talking to her on the phone, and I was like, so, she goes, oh yeah, she goes, I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh, good for you. But the way she said it, it's one of those things like when you ask somebody how you doing, they say, I'm okay. You go, what does that mean? You're not really convincing me here. When she said she was pregnant, she wasn't like jumping for joy. And this is on the phone. And I was like, how do you feel about that? I don't know. She goes, I'm having a hard time because I'm not married. So she knew. Click, click, something's off. And I go, so is your boyfriend or is not in favor? No, he wants to have the baby. And I just kept kind of peeling the onion. She goes, my parents wouldn't understand right away, presuming and assuming upon her parents, right? My dad was pro-life, as pro-life can be. She goes, he used to be that guy that would go down to Fargo and stand on the sidewalks and call out to moms and ask them to not change their minds. I've heard pro-life all my life. I was raised as a Christian. I know better. I knew better. But here I am, pregnant with this man's baby that we're not married. And, and she just is speaking shame, 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 shame. And I don't want to tell my dad. Right? She doesn't want to tell him what happened. And I was like, can I tell you? I said, if I were your dad, I would have grace for you. I would have mercy for you. And I wouldn't want you to go and make this choice that you're thinking about doing. I said, I don't even know if you're thinking about doing this, but I would so regret that you thought you couldn't come to me and talk to me about this. And now I'm missing a grandchild because of me. Because you think that I would heap shame upon you so much that you think you could abort your baby, my grandchild. She had that baby, and now she has two. And it worked out good. It didn't turn out as bad as she thought it was going to be. They're married, they're having a family, and they're living life. 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. 1 in 4. That means 1 in 4 men. So that means odds are, even in our midst, and a large percentage of them go to church. This has got to be something that we talk about on a regular basis. Of course, we talk about grace and mercy and love, but we don't talk about abortion because it's a sticky subject. But it's not sticky. God's grace is sufficient. His tunic covers it all. His blood, His grace, His mercy, everything covers your sin. If you think your abortion was so much bigger that God's grace can't cover that through what He did on the cross, you're mistaken. It's sufficient. It's good. And He wants you to be able to be that light to others and be able to talk to others and encourage others. And Satan wants so much to hold us back from our full potential of who we are in Him because we think we've done the unforgivable sin. God's grace is sufficient. His mercies are new every day. Confess and repent, and you will be saved. Now, as a Christian, and as you guys being the seat holders here now, if you've professed and confessed Christ as your Savior, you have a great commission upon you, a great responsibility to make Christ known. And why do we want to make him known? Because of what he's done for us on the cross. And it covers a multitude of sins. Amen? So we need to talk about abortion. And you can do this in such a way. You can use me now. You can say, hey, we had a really great service. We had this really great speaker from Dakota Hope Clinic. And then just talk about what we talked about today. You'd be amazed. People just see my shirt and they feel compelled to tell me. It's amazing. One time I got done preaching at the Nazarene Church in Minot. This was a few years ago. And I stopped at Marketplace Foods to get some food right after church. And I went up to the counter, and then there was an older gentleman that was there, and he asked me what Dakota Hope is. I explained to him. He goes, man, I wish you guys would have been around 30 years ago, 40 years ago. He said 40. It was a lot, actually, 40-some years ago. He said, I wish you'd been around then. He goes, my wife and I, we were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. We were unexpectedly pregnant. She was 15, I was 16, and we were searching for an abortion. They were not legal at the time. But he goes, we tried to find a place to get an abortion. And he starts welling up and he starts to cry. He goes, I can't imagine not having my daughter and now my grandchildren because I was ashamed. And he's just crying about something he didn't even do. And we would think we don't have it inside of us as Christians. But then shame Satan wants to whisper in our ear, did God really say this? You won't surely die. He ain't going to be there. She ain't going to, they ain't going to understand. You know, all this is going to be whispered into your ear. But now, as a Christian body, we can be there to encourage them. This is not the will of God. And this baby doesn't have to pay for that shame. We need to offer this to people on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Grace is always going to be there, and we need to offer that for ourselves and for others. So I encourage you, just as a church body, if you want a ministry, just put it out there. We want you all to come to church here, regardless if you had an abortion, if you're an alcoholic, if you've had drug abuse. Doesn't come and find out about the mercy that only Jesus can give. Amen? Oh man, I'm 10 minutes late. I'm going to pray. Father God, I thank you for this time together. Lord, I know I fall short in my preaching. Lord, I pray that this message was received well this morning. Lord, I pray that if there's anybody with an earshot that's hearing this morning, I pray, Lord, that you give them mercy, give me mercy, Lord, and I pray that the truth comes through this, what I preached this morning. And Lord, I pray that you use Encounter Church here, Lord, to truly encounter, Father, to go out and encounter the public, for them to encounter you, and to be able to come to your throne, to your mercy seat, and to grab hold of those horns, Father. I pray, Lord, that we just are able to come to that place for ourselves, and then for the sake of others, Father, to help them introduce them to others and to know who you are. And Father, I pray for the continued growth of Dakota Hope Clinic, Lord, and I pray for that you just help, Holy Spirit, bring back to everybody's memory, Lord, of the work that we do at Dakota Hope, that it may be brought to fruition someday to save not just the lives of these babies, but Lord, but to bring people into the fold of the kingdom of God, that they may be adopted into the family. And I just speak this forth today in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. So we have an event tomorrow night, if anybody's interested, at the Roosevelt Zoo. It's our 10-year anniversary. So we're doing stuff this summer. So at the zoo tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, we're having a zoo night for families, so you can bring your family. Me Mexico is sponsoring it, so they're going to have tacos and that kind of thing, and it's just a time to come together and talk, and just celebrate. And then we have a Hot Tots game coming up and at the end of June, and then we have the parade, and then we also have a movie night at Oak Park in August, and then our banquet coming up in the fall. But I encourage you to come visit us. Come to Dakota Hope, get a tour. You'd be really inspired. And just thank you for letting me speak to you guys. Bless you. Okay, bye-bye.